This is the Code to Cash podcast.
Nowadays, I hear a lot that VCs are telling like I've actually had this experience where VC was telling CEO what to do. And I often thought like, but the VC is not really knowing what's happening in the company. So why are they doing that? So I think that's my question. Why are VCs making operational recommendations that CEOs feel tied to act on? That's what I'm a little confused about.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in the investor world, a lot of the funds they make a thesis, they invest the money, and then the whole point is you've got a company that you're investing in and you want to try and make that company more profitable and more fast growing, et cetera, right? The whole rule of 40 thing. Oftentimes the secret sauce is that we've got a bunch of really senior experts who have done this many, many times before, and they do know what they're talking about. And we're going to inject them into the conversation and have them act as advisors and consultants and make recommendations on the operations of things. We at Union Square serve that role sometimes. And so every investment, especially one where we're talking potentially tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, come along with a very deliberate plan about how they're going to increase the value and extract value from that company. So I'm not surprised that you're involved in that or hearing that. Whether those recommendations are apt for that situation, I don't know, but I would guess that they probably put a lot of thought into it.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's because that's what I've been doing a little bit more research for my company, and that's what I hear that VCs are making recommendations for more CPQ specifically. And my experience with it is same as yours, that for many smaller companies, it's a burden rather than a solution. So that was more what I was curious about, is why, on a more general basis, why the recommendation is being made. And that's why I asked the auditability question, because I thought maybe it's the auditability that's the reason that's driving these things.
Yeah, I think it might be an understanding that a CPQ implementation can take a long time. And if we're doing everything else right, you got a VC involved, you're tending to grow quickly, that it helps to control and provide visibility and consistency to a business. If you feel like you're going to need it a year from now, you might as well get ahead of it and start today and get people used to using it. And it is a balance, because I find so many times that people, especially early stage companies, kind of put the revenue operations best practices off to the side and say, we're different or we're not ready for that. And by the time that they actually need these things to be in place, they've already installed some really bad habits and or bad technology. And to unwind it and start over is going to cost you at minimum a data set that you could have had over years. And at worst, I've gone into companies where they didn't know who their customers were. They literally lost track of them. They had left on the systems, didn't build a way to audit the system so that they could just tell who was turned on, and then lost the contract and weren't invoicing. They just have customers out there that are using their system, being provided the service, and we don't know who they are, but
they don't even know the customer.
They don't know. Literally, they hadn't. I mean, so they kind of sold a bunch of stuff very, very quickly. They grew really, really fast, and then kind of threw it over the wall to a CS or implementation team who stood them up, and then that person left, and then the next person in didn't get onboarded properly, and then
completely.
It can get really hairy. It can get really hairy if you don't have this stuff, and it's sort of like, well, we're selling like crazy, we're growing really, really fast, so we'll leave that process improvement and policy stuff to later, and then later comes around and you've got a leaky bucket to end all leaky buckets.